Hello, and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened. This week is our monthly community connection show where we answer questions and share stories that you all have sent in. If you want to ask a question or share a story, you can always message us on Facebook at Enlightened Empaths. And we hope you join our community there because we are growing and thriving, and it's a lovely way to meet and connect with all of you and for you guys to link in with each other as well. So, how are you doing this week, Denise?
Okay, I'm ready for a new shift in energy. I think we're all kind of acclimating after the very intense energies of the last few months. So forward from here.
Yes, yes. Happy new moon and all that good stuff as we move into better and more positive energy. So I'm going to jump in with the first question. This was sent to us on our Facebook page. Hi, Denise and Samantha. The political state in America is very rough right now, and all the talk of cruelty being dealt towards people is circulating heavily. As an empath, I found myself slipping into depressive states. I think it's worse, and I feel that the negative news is only growing more and more intense. What can an empath do? So I think we get this question a lot, don't you?
Yes.
This feeling of the news is so awful and the world is getting worse. And I get that. But one thing I want everyone to think about is that the news is a business. I don't think it was until the O.J. Simpson trial that we had 24-hour news. I could be wrong. But in my memory, that's about the time that we went from this, 5 o'clock news to 24-hour news.
Right.
That's a lot of hours for all these different news stations to fill up. And they have to create bad stuff very often to make that hour fill up. So I did some research, and I just want to share with you guys some evidence to prove that we truly are living in the best, most peaceful, happiest times of any other time in Earth's history. Do you believe that, Denise?
I actually do.
Okay, good. So, for example, I just wrote down some facts. In 1950, 75% of the world was living in poverty, compared to 10% today. More people are literate than at any time in history. Like in 1950, only 36% of the world could read.
Wow.
Find that shocking? Today, it's almost 90%.
Mm-hmm.
In 1800, 40% of children died before the age of 5. We have definitely brought that statistic down, thankfully. In the 1800s, the majority of the world had little freedom. Today, half of the world lives in a democracy. More people are receiving education than at any other time in history. For example, just in America in 1910, only 9% of Americans graduated high school. Today, graduation rates are at a 40-year high. Murder rates are down, car accident deaths are down, clean energy is getting cheaper. People are making more money, they have better access to healthcare and education, they're living longer, working less hours, and have more leisure time. Like, check this out. In the 1800s, the average person worked 60 hours a week. For example, in 1850, the US Census reported that the average person worked 66 hours a week. In 1900, 51 hours. Today, it's 35 to 40 hours.
There was nothing to divert people's attention. There wasn't television. There weren't phones, like cell phones. It wasn't that constant barrage of always being connected to everything. And people were more set with, and I'm not talking about child labor laws, which were horrific, back when they'd have little kids working in factories, but people would work with the cycles of the day. So
Right.
when we look at how much of our time we spend on all these extraneous things now, we can't imagine working more than, well, not you and I, but we can't imagine working more than 40 hours a week because of all the other things we have to get to.
Right. Well, and then I read in 1938, America passed the minimum wage law. Before that, bosses could pay you whatever the heck they felt like paying you. So imagine during the Great Depression when jobs were scarce. Just imagine certain people who aren't very nice, who you might know in your own life. Imagine how they would have taken advantage of that. In 1800, the U.S. life expectancy was 39. In America, if you were alive in 1800, the average person was expected to live 39 years. In 1900, it was 49. Today, it's 80. Like even recent news, in 1990, the United States averaged 20,000 murders a year. It's down now to 16,000 and is statistically dropping each year. In 1950, 30% of American homes had no electricity. From 1929 to 1949, 400,000 people died on average from weather events. Today, that has dropped more than half. Think about that the next time you watch the news about an earthquake or a hurricane or a tornado. These statistics are going down. Deaths in war battles have gone from 300 per 100,000 people in World War II to less than 1 in 100,000 today. Our homes today have more bathrooms than people. The cost of food has declined 90% since the 19th century, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In 1940, less than 5% of the US had college degrees. Today, more than 30% do. So, I mean, I could keep going on, but I won't bore everyone. If you want to read more information, check out Better Angels of Our Nature, which is where I got most of these facts, by Steven Pinker. It is a wonderful book that really does show our world is getting better and better. So when you are looking at this negative news, try to keep these facts in mind. We are living in the healthiest, happiest, most financially successful, peaceful time that any of our ancestors have known. Also, when you're watching the news, consider, is this news? Do you ever ask yourself that, Denise, when you look at some of the stories they put on there?
All the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely all the time.
So as empaths, we always recommend taking huge, long breaks from the news.
Be informed, but be selective.
Yes.
And I've said this before on the show, and I believe this is so much of the media is to try to keep us in a fear-based place. And if you're constantly getting barraged with negativity, fear, anxiety, depression, sadness, and just another fact thing was they never broadcasted wars until the Vietnam War. So no one knew what the horror was of war until that war, when it was showing up on the news and they had reporters right on the front lines and all of these other things. That changed our lives forever. But I truly believe it's similar to me of I was in a situation not long ago where there was some very negative people, and I came home and I felt exhausted and tired and achy and kind of blue, and then I thought, oh my goodness, this is how I feel when I'm getting I get the same exact physical reaction to that overload of negative media. So
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good for your mental, physical, or spiritual health. So keep informed around election time, but in general, try to stay away from the news. There is a great app we've recommended before. It's called the Good News app, and all they do is post positive, uplifting stories. Checking that once a day will remind you that there are good people out there who are doing great things every single day. Another thing I would recommend is if you're passionate about something, whether it's politics, animals, the environment, recycling, what have you, pick that one thing and stay abreast of that and do something positive to make a better influence on that one subject and ignore the rest for a while to recharge your batteries. I don't know if that's good advice, but it's helped me a lot.
I think it's excellent advice. So our next question, hi Denise and Sam. I've been listening to your show for some time now and thank you for all you do. I'm a fellow empath dealing with chronic illness. I've been sick for the last 10 years with IBS, chronic migraine, inflammation, anxiety, and depression. I recently got a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. I was wondering if you guys could do a topic on chronic illness and how to deal with this as an empath. Love and light. Now, from my own personal experience, and the more sensitive I become, the more this is apparent. How the mind-body connection is absolutely fascinating to me and astounding. And I've shared this when I was in a toxic work environment. I was having, some chronic physical pain, and I was equating it to being on the concrete floors because I was where I was working, and there was a lot of movement and walking. But it really wasn't just that. it was also all the stress, the tension, the anxiety I was holding in my physical shell from toxicity. When I removed myself from a toxic relationship situation, I stopped having the migraines. And I'm not saying leave a situation or that it's just an energetic reaction, but just as empaths, we are so much more attuned to that. Sometimes it just feels like we're getting hit with hail. It's so intense. And if you're interested in the mind-body connection, there are some wonderful, wonderful resources. Of course, Louise Hay, anything in that direction. But there's a book by Ina Segal, Segal, The Secret Language of Your Body. I've mentioned it before on the show. And she breaks it down into just ways that your emotions may be impacting your physical health. Just to take the IBS, for example, it can be feeling very unbalanced, confused, difficulty trusting, loss of direction, not knowing which way to turn. You may be having those physical symptoms, but then the emotional situations that may be in that direction are going to exacerbate what's going on physically. Do you agree with that?
I do, 100%. And I think this is where you have to recognize that you're an empath, which means you take on energy. And that's why I think learning to do chakra work is so important. Simply cleansing your chakras, listening to a chakra cleansing meditation, doing cord cutting where you cut cords to those toxic people or situations. And remember, again, people, cord cutting is just imagination. That's really all it is. You're imagining, visualizing this cord of energy that I believe really is there. But we use that word visualization so we can see what it looks like in other dimensions. And you cut that cord to that energy. I think practicing psychic protection techniques is crucial, whether it's just crossing your energy while you're around certain negative people or situations, or taking a salt bath once a week. There's all sorts of different wonderful psychic protection techniques you can use. Give yourself attention. What do I mean by that? A lot of people who are suffering from chronic illness are those people who don't raise their hand, who don't speak up, who don't say, look at me, I'm important. And so often our body will do the talking for us. So if you give yourself permission to make sure you are noticed, heard, and validated, I think that will help a lot. Read other books besides the one Denise mentioned. I really love Love, Medicine, and Miracles by Dr. Bernie Siegel, because he really talks about that mind-body connection and proves it with cases from his own practice. And The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn is a classic, but a great, great book. Do some talk therapy, whether it's with an actual therapist or a journal that you write in every day, but get these emotions out. I always look at these pent-up emotions that manifest as illness as little angry kids who aren't getting the attention. You know those kids who walk around and their parents just kind of ignore them? They're either at work or on their phone, and the kids get louder and louder. That's how I feel our energy is when we don't pay it attention. Try to do something creative. That's a wonderful way to get the energy flowing in your body again. And when I say creative, I'm not saying you got to go out and buy a canvas and some oil paints. I mean gardening, baking, knitting, crocheting, woodworking, pottery, anything creative, coloring in a book. Practice gratitude every day. That's hard, I think, when you're in pain. Don't you, Denise? That's the last thing I want to do. I'm so grateful for this pain I'm feeling today. But sometimes what you can do is just be grateful that it's not raining today, or be grateful that your friend stopped by and brought you your favorite smoothie. Try to be grateful for the little things. I also, when I get in, I don't deal with chronic illness, but I have had to deal with illness, and it's not fun and it's not easy. And one of the things that helped me a lot was doing anonymous acts of service. Just doing nice, kind things for people without getting credit. I don't know why that helps my soul, but it really, really does. I call it spiritual tithing. And finally, I would recommend that you give yourself permission to take breaks. Take breaks from your life. Have a pause button in your week in some way. If you can take an entire Saturday to just sit and watch TV or read a book or whatever it is that resonates for you as a break from your life, I think that can be really helpful as well.
I'd like to add just one more little tiny blip is that get in the habit of asking yourself, is this mine? Is this mine to own? As empaths, it's a really important habit to get into, but also a lot of the physical stuff we manifest through our emotions, it's the same emotions over and over. It's fear, guilt, resentment, anger. If you find yourself always in that revved up state with those emotions, I agree with Samantha so much on this is find an outlet for it, whether it's the creativity or physical movement, or you just find a way to release that so that it doesn't manifest illness, more illness, or doesn't make the illness that you're dealing with even worse.
Well said. Okay, our next question says, hello, ladies. I'm loving the new Narcissist series, and I'm wondering if you'd be interested in addressing how to spot them within the spiritual community. I find these ones to be the most challenging to recognize as they really know all the right things to say. They show up as teachers and healers, so they can be really confusing. What are some of the tells to help us identify these people before we get tangled up with them? Also, how can we recognize narcissistic clients that come to us? I think this is particularly challenging for energy workers who are seeing these clients regularly as well as sharing contact with them. How do we end treatment with them once we recognize they are narcissists? Okay, so that probably would be a good question for a whole show. But I will just say, unfortunately, I have met a lot of narcissists in the spiritual community. I find they're kind of easy to recognize because they're all about themselves. They tend to be very competitive. They tend to be very braggy. They tend to be very showy, and they use a lot of all or nothing phrases like, I always connect with my guides, or like I remember, Denise, the first day I worked at the little metaphysical store in town years ago, I was terrified. It was a psychic Saturday, which I hate. Anyway, so we all were sitting in the little back break room, before the store opened. And Denise, they were all sitting there bragging. This one lady was like, I can't even get in the shower without my guide trying to channel me information. And I'm sitting there going, give me a break. Are you serious? And this other person was like, I have a 2-week waiting list. I think I'm going to have to hire an assistant. And this other person was like, you don't have an assistant yet? I wanted to run out of there so fast, I didn't know what to do with myself. Have you ever seen that?
All the time. And it's getting worse.
It is getting worse.
And I don't think we just went from being, oh, let's be positive and optimistic, shut off the news, but no, this shit's getting real now.
Well, another way to recognize it, and I don't like, you have to edit me, maybe, Denise, because I don't want to say names or anything qualifying, but I heard a well-known intuitive on an interview recently, and he was throwing his fellow intuitives under the bus left and right.
Yes,
It
I listened to that. Yes.
Did it not bother the hell out of you? I was like, what are you doing? This is not spiritual. This is not kind.
But it was exactly what you just said a minute ago. It was coming from that place of my way is the only way. And
Yes.
I don't agree with that. And that's another little telltale sign is if someone is so adamant that you have to do it their way or it's not being done right. I took a course years ago and I respected the person greatly. I didn't have any base of knowledge in the subject, which made me even more vulnerable because if you don't know and someone is telling you this stuff, you think, oh my goodness, I just want to learn as much as they already know. But then in hindsight, when I looked back at it, it was coming from a place of ego and it was a big, big part of it was about wanting to get a financial, it was an expensive course. And I think the person was coming at it with that directive of how much money can I make from these people? And I'll just keep making sure I keep them hooked in. And that
Right.
sounds terrible, but it's honest.
It is. And you can tell a narcissistic spiritual teacher because oftentimes they feel challenged when you ask a question, which is always a bad sign. Or they will feel threatened if you are growing in your abilities beyond theirs. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen that with teachers in this realm, haven't you?
All the time.
You can also tell a narcissistic teacher because they don't cheer for you. They're not super happy when you actually develop your intuition, when you make a connection to the spirit guides or the angelic realm or a loved one on the other side, or you actually correctly read a client's aura for the first time. They're not your champion. They're not your cheerleader. They'll go, well, that was good. Keep that up.
Because they feel threatened.
Exactly. Exactly. So once you recognize that a teacher you're looking to for spiritual guidance is a narcissist, my advice is to run. When my fellow classmates and I recognized we had a teacher like that, we left the class, we started our own group. And eventually she did not teach that class anymore. And the owner of the store asked me to teach the class. And it was good for me, it was good for my students, but it felt weird. However, I think people know when you're authentic, and I think people know when you're not. And I think it's, what's that? Oh gosh, I can't quote from the Bible. Denise, what's that thing? The fruit will bear.
Brain fade.
Oh, look at us Catholics. Well, anyway, yeah, the tree will bear the fruits of how they're sown, or something like that. And so I do think that you can recognize it. Now, if you have a client who's a narcissist, that's also happened to me many, many, many times. I don't know why. Maybe this is why I attract so many narcissists. I always feel kind of bad for narcissists, especially when they're clients, because they don't recognize it and they really do think their problems are the worst in the world. And they really are coming to you for genuine help many, many times. And so I always try to be very tactful and kind and give them the information I'm getting and point out the things that they can do to rectify the situation. For example, the most common narcissistic client I get in my practice is someone who comes to me and they want to connect with their parent. God willing, I connect with their parent. And what comes forth is that this client has not spoken to their sibling in years because the client doesn't think they got enough money from the parent. Don't you see that a lot?
Yes.
And so I'll say as kindly and tactfully as I can to the client, the money your father worked for his entire life isn't yours. It's not your sister's. It's not your brother's. It's your father's. And what that money represents now and how he chose to divide it is how you can honor and love him, how you respond to what he chose to do in his will. Do you want everything your dad worked for and stood for to be represented in a legacy of discord and fighting? So I try to say it tactfully. I'm not saying, I think you're being selfish right now. I try to say it in a different way. And then if they come to reschedule, oh, I'm booked. Look at that. Who knew? So you don't have to keep re-engaging the narcissistic client, but I do think it's nice to try to help them the first time to see because narcissism is on a spectrum. So you want to see if you can help them.
See, that's what I was going to add in, is that I will work with people that are, my view of narcissistic clients is a tiny bit different in that they're abrasive, they're almost verbally combative, you'll give them a validation, boom, 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 and they'll just keep negating it. It's very, very difficult energy to work with, and you end up feeling depleted and possibly even double guessing yourself at the end of it. With that, I do the same thing. I always think, well, maybe that was just that first, and I'll give them another chance. But I had someone contact me a couple weeks ago, and it was a very demanding, it was just a one-line little email. It didn't say hello, there was no opening, there was nothing. When can you do a reading? 5 question marks. Finally, it went off in my head like a cowbell. I don't have to do that. I don't have to keep bringing that energy in. And I think as empaths, if we are dealing with that, and that's really sticky if you're starting your business and you're trying to, because there's this fear-based thing of, I don't want to get bashed, I don't want someone to go and smear me on social media, I don't want that. That's just normal with any business. That's not just a spiritually based business. That being
That's so
said,
true.
I think we can put our boundaries in place, and I love, no, I'm booked out, or no, that's not going to work, or just even energetically giving yourself that gift of saying, I don't need to be treated this way.
And I think you're talking about you're talking about overt narcissists. Those, and I
Yeah.
think you do get those often as clients. Every one of us does. It doesn't matter if you're working at McDonald's or IBM or, Google. Anywhere you work, you're going to find these types of narcissists. So thank you for clarifying that. I tend to get more of the martyr narcissist, the ones who come to me and they're all in that victim mode.
Mm-hmm.
That's tends to be my pattern.
No, I get, and luckily I get those too.
But for anyone out there who's thinking about doing this work, that really is a small minority.
I think we should just kind of segue into the next question.
Sounds good.
Uh, Hi, I've become quite interested in birds this past year and made a nice place for them at my home with all kinds of bird feeders, houses, and bird baths. I thoroughly enjoy watching them each day and it brings me peace. I've used them as signs and it's been wonderful and quite accurate, so I feel very close with them. Recently, there have been 2 deceased birds at my home. They aren't the birds I use as my signs. I was so sad it tore at my heart. I hate seeing any animal dead, but this seemed worse. I feel like it's a sign, but I'm not sure what it means. Do you have any insight on this for me? First of all, I love that she's making her space so welcome and open for birds to come, and because birds are one of our greatest messengers from spirit. Any winged creatures, and you can go with butterflies, bees, dragonflies, all of the flying creatures are wonderful, wonderful messengers from spirit for us. And and it brings her peace. Again, win-win. When I read this the first time, what popped into my head is something in your life is being released, and it's time to put it behind you. There's a part of you, and it is. I hope this isn't too over the top. I almost feel like finding those birds. It was about putting some aspect of her own life to rest and what I'm seeing as I say that is a door being nudged closed with a little bolt being put on it. So I feel like even though there is sadness, and that happens when I find an animal that's passed or a dead bird, I will do a little ceremony and bury it and say a prayer. I'll like send off a spiritual, do something so that there's a crossing for the animal.
Yes, I think that's wonderful advice. And I think the way you interpreted that is absolutely correct. But I also want to add in that sometimes these things happen and they aren't signs. I
Yeah.
remember I was at Michael's with a friend a couple of Halloweens ago, and we were looking at all the Halloween decorations, and they had this whole pyramid display of unpainted little coffins. And my friend was laughing and she was like, what do we do with this? We take it home and we're like, oh, kids, we get to paint coffins today. And we were just kind of joking. And she opened up one of the coffins and there was a dead butterfly inside.
Wow.
And she was like, what? And we opened up some of the others and there was nothing in them. And she freaked out. She was like, what are the odds that the one little wooden coffin I'd opened would happen to? She freaked out. All month she was on high alert. Nothing bad happened to her. Not that month and not in the years since. Things just happen. Okay.
And I think because we're always looking too. We want our signs, damn it.
Yes, we do. But sometimes it's just nature and life and that type of stuff.
Sure.
All right. Hello, ladies. I love you both, and your podcast is fantastic. Thank you. Samantha said something a while back that is making a big impact in my life, and I wanted to share it with you and your audience. She said, when I invest in myself, the universe invests in me. I started using it as a mantra and an incantation, and it has been a wonderful reminder that I mustn't put others above taking care of myself. After a few weeks of using this, I have expanded it. When I believe in myself, the universe believes in me. When I take care of myself, the universe takes care of me. When I love myself, the universe loves me. When I am kind to myself, the universe will be kind to me. Thanks for introducing me to this idea. Like other empathic and intuitive humans, it can be really hard to remember to be as good and kind to ourselves as we are to others. We tend to give so much to others, there's nothing left to take care of ourselves. Another great incantation that I read or heard is every day in every way, my life is getting better and better. And just as an aside, guys, that's a famous one. It was started by I believe a psychologist and new thought writer around the turn of the century or the 1920s. And there's some fascinating research on how that one affirmation has helped people every day in every way. My life is getting better and better. So she continues, it has kept me from overanalyzing and worrying myself like crazy as I start a new job and moving this weekend. My daughter has Down syndrome, and since she was born 17 years ago, I got a divorce and have had to get so much help from others to be able to work and make a living, as well as for us and her older brother. So when the move is done, I will work a few blocks from where we live and be able to take care of her all by myself. Needless to say, this Independence Day had a whole new meaning for me. Kudos to you, Denise, for your work with special needs children. To parents like me, you are a hero. The universe chose this path for us, and it has its challenges. But eventually, we realize it was a gift we didn't even know we needed. But you weren't forced to make a difference in these children's lives and advocate for them and help them grow. You chose it. And that makes you, my friend, a hero. Keep shining, ladies. Isn't that a lovely email?
That's
I know.
kind. It's so kind. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you for adding to those affirmations. I really like her suggestions. I should make a post about that and put it on Facebook.
Not just for the compliment, which thank you very much. That truly, truly touched my heart. But I think she made an excellent, excellent point in this. It kept me from overanalyzing and worrying myself like crazy. That seems like such a prevalent issue for empaths, for people in general right now, of jumping on the crazy train and going 0 to 60 with overthinking stuff or worrying or stressing. And it seems I've talked to more and more people, but also in my own life of just boom, and it's like a pinball game in there. So anything we can do. So thank you very much for sharing this.
Yeah, beautiful email. Do
Okay.
you want to read our next one?
Good afternoon, Samantha and Denise. I enjoy listening to your show so much. I just finished listening to your June Connections episode, and it made me remember a dream I had about a month ago. In my dream, I was talking to my mom, who is very much alive, and she told me when we die, the spirit world isn't up or down, it's all around us. Then we ascended into the air, and she showed me an aerial view of life. When we were floating in the air and I looked down as if it was my life, was a TV set. One set was work, another was home, but with a live studio audience. But the live studio audience was our loved ones who have passed. My mom explained to me in my dream that our loved ones are around us all the time, and at any time they can walk onto the set and visit us, but they're always watching. Some quick backstory before I explain the next part of my dream. After my grandma had passed, I kept finding bobby pins everywhere. Home, work, my car, my fiance's car, everywhere. My grandma was infamous for having bobby pins, and I knew it was always her just letting me know she was there. In my dream, it shot to me being getting ready for work in my bathroom and my grandma coming on the set and placing a bobby pin right outside my bathroom door in love and light. That's a fun email. And just to validate for a lot of people that are listening, dreams have been going off the chain lately. These vivid, lucid, people are calling left and right. What the hell's going on? Why am I dreaming so much? There's so much symbolism. And you and I have shared this a lot, that for me, I get these sections in my life where it's like that. It's like going to the movies every night, and then I'll get nothing, dust bunnies and tumbleweeds, and then it'll pick up again. But a lot of people are saying it's not shutting off. I talked to a woman the other day. Her mother passed like 11 years ago. She said she has dreamt about her mother every single night since she passed.
Wow.
And I felt bad for both of them. I think the
Why?
woman's naturally a medium too, so that's another part of it. But
Why'd you feel bad for them? I think that's such a gift.
it was, except it was a similar pattern to the way, and I asked her, was it a lucid dream? Was it? And she said, oh, very much so. She said, it's just like we're sitting and talking. She says, but we're going over a lot of the same things we went over in life. It's like she still is
Oh,
continuing where we were, all that. And they were very close. It wasn't adversarial at all.
right. Maybe she's just helping her mom with the life review process.
Don't you think that's interesting, though, that why do some people dream about loved ones so easily and others don't? Loved ones who have passed.
Right.
Because dreams are number one visitation way. Why do some of us get the dreams and some of us don't? And
I think it's all about openness. If you're open to it, it's easier for them. I know so many people in my own life who I'll tell them if they've lost someone, be open to a dream. They might come to you in a dream. And many, many, many friends have said, "Oh, I don't know why. It's just my dad, but that scares me."
Mhm.
Even that little thought will push that energy away. So it's all about openness. But Denise, can I just say, if my life were a TV show, can you imagine the loved ones in heavens? They'd be like, "Shit, you mean that girl who's always in her minivan? I'm not watching that." But sometimes she goes to Target and sometimes she does really cool ratings. No, man, that chick is boring.
Well, but I
I
heard that
love this idea of them watching us though, like on a TV set, like the Truman Show. I think that's pretty cool. A little freaky.
But I do agree that I've heard this from a lot of people, and I don't know if I agree. I think that it's something to explore as in our own realm of what we believe as true, is that heaven isn't up and hell isn't down, but it's parallel. There's a parallel. It's you know how they always say like ghosts are floating a few feet above the ground? That used to be that old expression when they'd see people, they'd be like
Yes.
floating a few feet. That's what a lot of people have used that as a to say that's really where this other realm is. It's just a few feet above us. It's not way up in the sky or through the atmosphere.
Many, many, many of the ancient religions taught that. It wasn't until we had this idea of hell down below, from I think the ancient Greeks maybe started that, or the Babylonians, that we had this idea of up and below. But if you look at the ancient teachings around Samhain or Halloween, there has always been this understanding that the other world is just a different dimension, and there are what they call thin places or portals throughout the world where these dimensions touch more easily. And there are different times throughout the year where that veil gets thinner, and Halloween or Samhain is one of them. So I think that's really, really neat. And I love that she had this dream with her mom while her mom was still alive. I have that a lot where I'm talking to family or friends who are still alive, and it supports my belief that we don't sleep when we sleep. Our bodies sleep, but our souls travel.
Yes.
We visit with other people, we visit with our guides, we visit with loved ones on the other side. And for whatever reason, our consciousness remembers some of them and filters others of them out. But it does happen, and I think this story proves that. Okay, our next question says, "Hi, Denise, Samantha, and Deb." So for those of you who are like, who the heck's Deb? I have another podcast called Psychic Teachers that I host with Deb. And this listener says, "I'm reaching out to all three of you because I know you all will have different takes on this, and three is a powerful number. In short, my question is this: how can two different intuitives get positive information about a person, but not get or foresee the negative aspects? I ask because of a recent traumatic event. A family member of mine, who is also my best friend, has suffered a lot of traumas in her life. A few years ago, her husband passed suddenly and unexpectedly, leaving her very grief-stricken. She has seen a few other people since his passing, but none have been very healthy relationships. I occasionally get messages from her late husband, but since I'm so close to her, it's hard for me to get really clear messages. As you know, it's hard to do readings for your loved ones. She recently started seeing someone. I'll call him Tom. When she told me about Tom, I could see him and started describing him to her with a big golden light emanating from his chest, and got very accurate information about him that she could confirm, along with a very positive feeling. She later told me that she had seen another medium who said this Tom person is the man her late husband had been trying to get her to meet. She took this all as a good sign, and as far as I could tell, was quite happy with Tom. I never got any negative feelings about it except when she wanted to move in with him after only seeing him for 6 weeks. That's a codependency red flag. I told her I didn't think that was the best idea and she should wait at least a few months more before moving in. Flash forward to a few days ago, Tom snapped suddenly and ended up beating up her and her brother, who tried to step in to protect her. The situation escalated to the point that someone was shot. The shot was not fatal, but it was a terrifying and traumatic event. After the assault, it came to light that Tom has a history of violence against women. So, I am wondering how myself and the other medium were able to get positive information about the guy, but not get a warning about his dark side. I am feeling quite guilty after it all because I told her what I saw, but was unable to get a warning message to her. If it had just been myself, I would have summed it up to not paying close enough attention and missing the message. But since neither I nor the other medium got a warning about this guy's history, it leaves me very confused. If ever there was a red flag to be waved, you would think that would be it. Just wondering what your thoughts are. Okay, so first of all, I'm just so sorry that your dear friend went through that traumatic event and her brother. That's just terrible. I think there's two answers to this question, and then I'd love to hear your input, Denise. One answer to this question could be, one of the mistakes we intuitives make often is we read the energy of the client rather than the energy of the client's guides or higher self. So what I mean by that is, if a client comes to you and they're like, I've just met this great guy, Tom, and I think he's really the one, and I don't know, what do you think? If we just tune into that client's energy and we're reading all her hopeful, happy thoughts and feelings, we might not get the red flag because we're not pushing our energy up and out to the more pure energy and message. And that happens. The other answer that could be going on here, oftentimes when people meet and it's so instantaneous, that attraction, that connection, and you find there's all these coincidences and synchronicities, and it's almost like you were brought together for some Danielle Steele happily ever after ending. Oftentimes, that's a sign that there's a karma relationship here and that you two came together to work this out. And I wonder if this woman and Tom had this type of karma. And the reason why this huge red flag was hidden from her was so that they could work out this karma. What do you think?
I think that makes perfect sense. The other thing is, this is more a psychic or an intuitive question rather than being a medium, because this is about someone who's present now. And that's why it's really important, if you're doing any of this work, to always, always give the disclaimer that anything intuitive is subject to change and free will. And I think that there's a part of that in here. We don't know, is Tom this person in her life? Had he gone through therapy and relapsed? Was this just, and there's so many aspects of this story we don't know, and I agree with you 100%. It's horrific. No one wants to be hurt or vulnerable. As far as misreading a situation or not getting the red flag, it's hard not to beat yourself up a little bit because you want to help people. If you're coming from a place of being of service and wanting to help, you want to give what's highest and best for people. One of the things too is, I think that I agree with you that there's some other bond or connection, that this person came in as a messenger and she learned some life lessons she never possibly would have learned in another. And I know that sounds, I hope that's coming out the way it's intended, from a place of love and compassion, because what I'm seeing is like pulling off a blindfold and seeing things with clarity in a way that she may not have since. The last thing is, one of the things I like to do is to use some sort of divination to support what I'm getting intuitively. Because if I'm getting exactly what you just said, of reading someone's energy and they're all, oh, lemon drops and rainbows, and this person is the second, oh, I'm so excited. If you use divination to support that and you get a red flag through that, which isn't everything's the sun card and happiness and joy, or using whatever it is, that can be a way to step away from yourself and use something to see if there's a red flag you might be missing. Do you ever do that with readings, is back it up with divination tools?
Yes, the cards don't lie. I'll tell you that much.
Unless
Sometimes,
you do it for yourself.
oh yeah, that's true. But I mean, if you're getting all sorts of positive information about a relationship and then you pull three cards and it's, the Three of Swords or the 10 of Swords or the Two of Cups reversed or the Five of Cups, you got something wrong there and you need to go back into meditation and figure it out. But I'm wondering, Denise, if she said in this email that her friend had a pattern of unhealthy relationships.
Oh, I had missed that part.
Yeah, and so I'm wondering it said she has seen other people since her husband passed, but none of them have been healthy relationships. So I'm wondering if this wasn't a karmic thing and if there is a blessing in here, because trauma, any type of trauma that happens to us, always has huge gifts inside of it. And I wonder if this is the push this woman needs to really work on her codependency and start to love herself so that she can go out into the world and manifest real, lasting, true, authentic love.
Excellent, excellent point. And also the part about it being a friend. If I have a friend that is involved with someone, I'm always very, very, very hesitant to give any intuitive or mediumistic advice. I mean, if I'm seeing big, giant red flags, I'm going to say something. But if I've met someone that a friend is interested in or involved with and they're happy and I'm getting just like, what is she seeing or what is he seeing in this person, I keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. What was it? I think it was a year ago I made that boundary. I won't do readings for friends anymore.
And the last part of checking in with the higher power, with the guides, with those in spirit, with your guide, if I'm getting any kind of an inkling that something feels off, I have certain signs that they'll give me. They'll show me eyes shifting back and forth. They'll give me flashes of people that had serial infidelity. They'll give me a flash of, my poster child for substance abuse. So just maybe taking a step back and seeing, is this person like anyone else I know, and ask spirit for a little heads up. That might be a tool as well.
Well, or ask your guides to use Tom as your new symbol for this.
True.
Do we have time for one more?
We do.
Okay.
I have a quick question after listening to the narcissist episode. Is it possible to be an empath and a narcissist? I would say yes.
You would? Okay, I answered this one personally to her, and I said no. You tell why you say yes.
On the spectrum, just because everybody can be on the spectrum with narcissism.
True. I was just thinking, I've known so many narcissists, and I think they can fake empathy really well. I think they can feel very empathic for themselves, but I don't know that they can be empaths.
Good point.
I just watched this summer. It's so good. It's on Amazon Prime, Vanity Fair. The old classic from the 19th century, but they made it updated. It's so good. Becky Sharp is such a great narcissist. And there are so many scenes, if you watch it from that point of view of studying narcissist, the only time she cries in that 7-part series is when something affects her. And I watched that. It's so good, guys. You should check it out if I love the music too. Anyway, it was very eye-opening. And I thought about the narcissist I've known in my life, and I thought that's so consistent. They feel terrible for themselves. They feel sad for themselves. They feel afraid for themselves, angry if something happens to them. But if anything dramatic, traumatic, negative is going on around them and it doesn't affect them, they're dry-eyed. They don't care. Well, that was a quick question. I'll read the next one and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Good evening. A friend of mine and I are huge fans of the show and talk about your show often. We wondered about your take on something with manifesting. We have both had experiences with asking our guides, helpers, angels, and the universe for signs and seeing how we can manifest when we ask for it and surrender. What do you feel happens with trying to manifest for a whole family unit or as a married couple when you are the only one asking for signs and surrendering to the universe to help manifest? For example, if my husband and I are trying to create our own business, but I'm the only one working directly with the universe to manifest, can I manifest strongly for both of us? Thank you, and keep doing what you are doing. Your shows have inspired me so greatly. Thank you. Well, we've covered this on other shows, and here is my answer to that question. The strongest energy wins. We are manifesting all the time, whether we know it or not. So if you are trying to manifest with a partner, a spouse, or a family member, and they are afraid of manifesting that, or they want the opposite, In my experience, the strongest energy wins. Meaning whoever is putting the most consistent time and effort into whatever it is they are thinking about, that is what is going to come about. This is why manifesting can be so tricky. Do you agree?
I do. I do. And I think as things start to come to fruition, people who may be hesitant or cynical or doubters, they start to say, there's something to this. But I think there's that, especially if someone is wired very practically or grounded or linear sequential, they may see it as too woo-woo.
That's true too. That's true. But if you are trying to create a business with a partner who's on board and they have the same vision as you do, you can definitely work wonders to manifest a successful business for the both of you. You don't have to, your husband doesn't have to sit there with you at the dining room table with a glue stick cutting out pictures for your vision board. It's just important when you're trying to manifest that the two of you or the group of you are on the same page. When you aren't on the same page, when you guys are envisioning something totally different, that's when manifesting becomes really hard.
Yes.
And what I say to that, if someone's listening to this and going, well, crap, my coworker really thinks our new project is going to fail. I really think it's going to succeed. Samantha's saying this is going to, go to hell in a handbasket. No, what I'm trying to say is if you're in a situation like that, you just have to up your game. You have to, seriously, this is what I have done when I'm trying to manifest something and someone close to me is manifesting the opposite. I will get a blank calendar for the month. I will tape it next to my bed or on my bedroom mirror, somewhere that I'm going to see all the time. And I will put a check mark every day that I have taken at least 30 minutes to sit and meditate and visualize all the positive things I'm trying to manifest coming to fruition. That's a great way to keep up your manifesting practice as a visual and consistent reminder that if you keep putting energy into this, you're going to help manifest that. So just be the stronger, more positive energy.
Yes, great advice.
Thank you. We did not get to all of our questions, so I will try to save these, Denise, and we'll try to get to them for our September show.
Perfect.
If you guys, as I said in the beginning of the show, want to share a story or a question, please message us on Facebook, Enlightened Empaths. Sometimes we answer you personally. Sometimes we just save them for the show because the answer is just too long. But we do try to respond to everybody who reaches out to us. And remember that Facebook page is designed to be a community page. So if you see an article or a funny comic strip that reminds you of empaths and it's not copyrighted and you can share it on Facebook, please use that page as a community page. Don't think of it as Samantha and Denise's page, because we really are trying to grow this community. And if you like our show, please tell a friend. Don't forget to send us a review on iTunes and subscribe to our show. It really helps us to grow. Denise and I are busily and happily teaching our Mediumship 101 class right now, Thursday nights. But don't forget, we do have one coming up the daytime and Fridays in September. And that one is booking up, but there is still room if you want to join us. You can go to either one of our websites for information on that, SamanthaFay.com or thegratefulmessenger.com. We hope you guys have a wonderful, happy week. Don't forget, as always, to show up, do great work, share your light.
Take care.